Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys for another show, for another episode of our tactical breakdown series, our show in which we look at the players that have been linked to Arsenal and break them down in a statistical and analytical way with the help of some expert insight to give you guys all the latest info, education around these players. We're going to look at how they compare to some of the other players at the club and that we're currently linked to as well, to see how they stack up and ultimately get your thoughts and feelings too in our live chats. It is, of course, England against Germany in literally 59 minutes time, so excuse the England shirt just for this show. I hope you're good. I hope you're well. Please drop a like on the video if you're enjoying the content. We're going to be breaking down plenty of stuff like this throughout the transfer window as well. So I look forward to giving you all of that content and more. Without further ado, let's get our expert insight, which today comes from Rich Hall, who is the creator of Gentleman Ultra, a Football Italia writer as well, and an all-round Italian football expert, to tell us all about Mert Muldur, the Turkish international Sassuolo right-back. So take it away, Rich.
So Arsenal's interested in Muldur's, I think, realistic in the sense of he's a good player. He's only 22 years old and he can operate all around the back line. Mainly as a right back, but he can also play centre back, and he's an excellent player. The fee depends. It depends on a few variables, should we say. Now, the one thing to watch here is, we've talked about Sassuolo before, but you look at the likes of Domenico Berardi. Is he going to go after his fabulous Euro campaign? There's talk in the Italian press that he's going to go somewhere along the lines of 40 to 50 million euro, and so Sassuolo will not want to lose all their talents in one summer. They're going to want to look to recoup and go back at Serie A in good shape, and of course the model that they're built on is looking that they can afford to lose one player. So again, I think it's speed to market with Arsenal here. It wouldn't be the greatest loss to lose Muldur for them, in the sense of, because of the position he plays and because a right back's more easily replaceable than some creative player like Berardi, for instance, or any of their other main stars up front. So I think that there's certainly a possibility this could happen. As a player, I like him. He's stable. He's very mature for 22. He's got a good head on his shoulders. He's quick. Good delivery. He's one of these players who's got pretty much everything you want, in a sense. There's no particular weaknesses for me. Don't get me wrong, he's no Achraf Hakimi, but again, I think he'd give you something, especially with the rumours of Bellerin potentially going to somewhere like Inter Milan to replace Hakimi, if that goes, or that all happens. You'd get someone where I don't think you'd notice the loss of Bellerin in that sense, because I think you'd have someone who's potentially a bit more of a cultured player. Again, don't expect this guy to come in and change the world, but very, very dependable. And again, he's a Turkish international at 22. You may have seen him play there before. He's very highly rated, as I said before, when he was at Rapid Vienna. So I certainly think there's possibilities for Arsenal to easily get him, because it would be a very attractive prospect. I mean, coming to London would be, and playing at the Emirates would be huge, because Sassuolo, for all they've done and all the good they've done, the Mapai Stadium's a nice stadium as well, but it's just a bit different.
A massive thank you there to Rich for helping us out with the expert insight on the show. He's an interesting player. I haven't been able to look loads really into him. He's been one of those players that kind of, when you look at clips of when he plays, obviously as a fullback, you see a lot of kind of the potential of him going forward. You see what he's like in the final third, the way that he delivers the ball, and all of this. And defensively, you don't get to see too many of those clips, but he does look to be a player that's got a hell of a lot of potential. Already called up to the Turkish national side and played at the European Championships as well. Not been able to get too many minutes, and of course with Zeki Çelik, another player that Arsenal have been linked to as well. But what we should do is we'll look first of all at his statistics too. We've had our expert insight, so we move on to the next part. We start off with some of kind of the outlines of him as a player. He's 22 years of age. He's 6 foot in height, so that's actually a pretty good return for a player in our defence, or we have not too much height in that area, which you may see some of the aerial dual stats we'll look at in a second. His contract does run till 2024, so he's not going to be going too cheaply in comparison to where he's coming from, the player that he is. But a 15 million euro price tag, which is the reported fee that's out there currently right now, is still a very reasonable figure for a right back. And I'm surprised if Arsenal go for a right back of around that figure, because I thought they might spend a little bit more. But, of course, they do have plenty of cover there already, and Cedric and Chambers that can play there, with Bellerin's future still uncertain and undecided, but it does look like the Spaniard will be leaving. He's made 28 appearances for Sassuolo this season. He hasn't scored any goals, but he does have a single assist, and you would hope that those statistics would increase playing for a much more dominant side. Like, I say much more dominant, I'm thinking of Arsenal of old, but still you think of Arsenal having a much more possession-based side than what Sassuolo are, would how it maybe be able to get more opportunities to get those stats a little bit higher. And he has suffered no major injuries in his career, injuries at all. The only time he's missed any games because of self-isolation during the pandemic. So that's a really good bit of news for him. If we go into then a look at some of the comparisons, we are going to compare him directly to Bellerin. We're also going to compare him to Max Aarons, another player that I'd really like Arsenal to go out and sign, and to his Turkish compatriot as well in Zeki Çelik. So let's have a look at those statistics, first of all, by looking at the heat maps. Interestingly, he has got his intensity in both halves of the pitch, which is great to see. Is when we looked at Nuno Tavares, the Benfica left-back we look like we're going to be signing, it was a much more intense attacking third. But what we see from Muldur is intensity in both halves of the pitch, which is certainly positive. Not as much, though, as you see there from Zeki Çelik. Very impressive heat map from him. If we go into the defensive duels, he actually has quite a high rate of frequency of his defensive duels, with 7.24 being made per game, with a 53.8% success rate, which is better than that of Hector Bellerin. Not as successful or as frequent as Zeki Çelik. He isn't as developed as the Lille right back, but he is managing to get on the high frequency of defensive duels in his game. Going into the aerial duels, he's one of our taller players, but ironically, he's actually winning in and around the same as everyone else on our list. Zeki Çelik, again, coming out quite in the highest kind of percentage at 45.5. But Muldur is coming around the same kind of aerial ability as that of Hector Bellerin, who's a bit smaller. So maybe part of his game that he needs to work on with his 6-foot height. It's more his strength that he has over players like Bellerin and Aarons that's associated with his height rather than that of his aerial ability. Going into the loose ball duels, he's winning around 31.5%, which is lower than those on our list. But he does get involved with more, with 2.73, which does increase the amount of fouls that he does end up making. He does need to improve that kind of composure and discipline in those key positions, but that will come with age and development. Interceptions, he's got more than anyone else on our list at 5.01, the only one to break into the fives on our interceptions rating, with Bellerin and Zeki Çelik close behind with just over 4.7. If we go into the losses, he does make 10.33 losses, which is, whilst, yes, less than Zeki Çelik ever so slightly, the 45.1% of those losses happening in his own half is a little bit concerning, and you'd hope that he play a little bit more composed if he was to play for Arsenal, playing in a right-back holding role, rather just a right-back role in a back four is needing to really improve that loss statistic. Going into the recoveries, though, 6.48 is the second highest on our list behind Zeki Çelik, who's got a really impressive 8.53, but he wins a fair amount in the opposition half, 31.3% of those. And to be fair, Hector Bellerin there with 6.71 is the second highest, just ahead that of Muldur. Going into his passing statistics, he does fall down ever so slightly here. Comes out a little bit better than that of Zeki Çelik, though, with 79.8% passing accuracy. Not as high, though, as Bellerin or Max Aarons. Passes into the final third, again, falls down ever so slightly in comparison to Bellerin here, but better than that of Zeki Çelik with a 73.9% accuracy, but not as many passes going into the final third with 3.49. Passes into the penalty area, 2.73 is equally as high as Bellerin, but not as anywhere near accurate, with only a 35.2% accuracy on his deliveries of passes into the box. Touched into the penalty area, 1.87. Like Aarons, he does like to be proactive and get into the box if he can, using his dribbling ability. And you see his dribbling ability here, 54.8% of the dribbles being succeeded, in and around the same success rate as the others on the list as well, and with a higher frequency of dribbles than that against Bellerin and Zeki Çelik, closer to that of Max Aarons. Finally, going into the shots, he does like to take a couple of shots per game, with 15 being made across the season, or rather, I mean, it's just under one per game, actually. I think it's around 0.5 per match, with a 20% shot accuracy. It's not really part of his game, his shooting, as you see from the likes of Zeki Çelik, who loves a shot. 88 shots across the whole season, does like to take a shot from the right-hand side of the box if the opportunity presents itself, and that's why he gets himself a fair few goals during the season too. From looking at those statistics, if Arsenal are looking at right backs this season, of 15 million euros is the figure, which is the same figure that Zeki Çelik we were quoted of being available for, I certainly would be leaning more towards the starting Turkish right back rather than the current kind of understudy and improving potential right back for Arsenal next season. But I want to know your thoughts and feelings in the chat box as well. So please let me hear from you guys in the chat. Let's get some of your thoughts and feelings. It's not going to be a few of those, so I need to wrap this up pretty quick with the England game coming up. But let's see what you guys are saying. Uzoezi says, why compare him to a left back? We need to see if he's better than the right backs. Well, all of those on our lists are right backs. So I don't know who on our list was a left back, because Bellerin's right back, Celik is right back, Aarons is right back. So strange one. Iron Cup says, we haven't had a great right back since Sanya left. Need a proper right back now. This guy doesn't excite me. Girish says, why are we not comparing him to Tyler Adams? I think the Tyler Adams kind of situation has died down. And the reason why we're not comparing him statistically with him is because he's played a lot of games both in midfield and at right wing back. And so, therefore, it's difficult to kind of address those statistics straight off the bat. Whereas if you compare him to those three, you get more of a statistical comparison of solid right back roles rather than the right wing back / midfield style role. That's why. Celik was really poor in the Euros. It was, JD, as was pretty much the entirety of the Turkish national team. And yet there are still some very good players in that Turkish national side. I wouldn't be taking the Euros as a barometer of Zeki Celik's talent by any means. Clyde says, Tom, defensive actions are also based on how the manager deploys his players. It may not be fair representation of the player's abilities. It's very, very true. And that's why you always have to apply the context when looking at a player's statistics. When you're looking at a player in particular like Zeki Celik, you need to look at how Lille play. If you're looking at a player like Muldur, you need to look at how Sassuolo play. But ultimately, when they lose the ball, it could be because they're playing in a much more proactive style. So I implore you to go out there and have a look at the player and go and try and watch some of the clips of where and how he plays. His name is Elite, says Let's Talk Arsenal. Was he a starter at Sassuolo? Well, he played 28 games for them last season, so he's one of their more key figures in the side. Temiola says, hi, Tom, what happened to Max Aarons? Are we no longer in for him? The answer to that is simply there's no news on that one whatsoever. There was kind of noise at the beginning of the window. That has very much died down of late, which is a shame because he's kind of the player that I would want Arsenal to go for. Yo-Yo says Celik may lack the required athleticism. In the Euros, he was slow on the turn and didn't have the much recovery pace. If you're going to talk about his lack of athleticism, I suggest you look at actually how he got on for Lille this season, because his actual athleticism for Lille, as you can see from the heat maps, is incredibly impressive. You look at how much he gets up and down the pitch for Lille this season, there is nothing wrong with Zeki Celik's athleticism. He didn't have a great Euros, and that was a bit of a microcosm of a bad tournament, not of a bad player by any means. It is very frustrating when you know and you watch a player or you see a player play and you look at clips of them and you've seen them across 2 years. They have one bad tournament in the spotlight whereby lots of people are seeing them, and that's where they base their kind of opinion around him as a player. You should not let the European Championships cloud your vision about Zeki Celik. I've said it time and time again. Speak to plenty of people that have watched him. For Lille, he is excellent for Lille. And it's just the simple way that it is. Amandeep says, too many hidden gems in one window. Need more established players. And I think that it is important that you find that balance between bringing in established talent and you bring in players that are going to give you that potential and that can grow into those roles for sure. JD says, it's Max Aarons homegrown? Yes, of course it is. If yes, then he should be one that we sign instead of Ramsdale to fix our quota. I think for that, we are going to wrap things up there. Thank you so much, guys, for tuning in. It's been an absolute pleasure. If you could drop a like on the video, smash that like button. I really would appreciate it. And of course, subscribe to the channel if you're new around here with those notifications turned on. Enjoy the England game. I'm not going to do any score predictions because by the time some of you watch this, of course, we'll probably already be out of the Euros. But we'll see how that goes. It's been a pleasure as always, guys. Speak to you again very, very soon. And as always, up the Arsenal.